Hello and welcome to News Round. I'm Laddie Williams. Coming up on the program, Nigeria Labour Congress, Trade Union Congress of Nigeria to commence indefinite strike on October 3rd. Federal government asked Labour to shelve proposed strike action. Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu announces zero tolerance of trading activities along the Red Line rail corridor. Plus, around 100 people killed in Iraq wedding fire. Our news round begins with the planned nationwide indefinite strike announced by the leadership of the Trade Union Congress and the Nigeria Labour Congress, which is to commence on Tuesday, the 3rd of October 2023. The leadership of the two trade unions made the declaration at a joint news conference in Abuja, where they accused the federal government of failing to address the after effects of fuel subsidy removal on the citizens.
There is victory for us.
Solidarity songs from members of the National Executive Council of the Nigerian Labour Congress, NLC, and the Trade Union Congress, TUC, rent the air as the two labour centres prepared to brief journalists on the resolutions from their separate meetings held earlier in the day.
TUC, NLC, stronger together.
The labour leaders have been at loggerheads with the federal government since the removal of subsidy on petrol 3 months ago. Besides holding meetings with the Minister of Labour and other representatives of the federal government, the NLC and TUC also staged a nationwide protest in August with 10 demands, which includes immediate reversal of the current pump price of petrol, payment of salary arrears for university lecturers, wage awards for civil servants, renegotiation of minimum wage, fixing of the refineries, among others. At this joint news conference, the labour leaders accused the government of deliberately ignoring their demands and therefore declared an indefinite nationwide strike.
The government has totally abdicated this responsibility and has shown gross unwillingness to act, abandoning Nigerian people and workers to excruciating poverty and affliction. The federal government has therefore not met in any substantial way the demands of the Nigerian workers and the people as previously canvassed in our mutually agreed roadmap.
The NLC and TUC NEC in section resolved as follows. 1. To embark on an indefinite and total shutdown of the nation beginning on 0 hours, Tuesday, the 3rd day of October 2023. 3. To direct all workers in Nigeria to withdraw their services from their respective workplaces commencing from the 3rd of October 2023.
On Monday, September 25, the Minister of Labour appealed to the workers' unions not to embark on a strike. The statement signed by the Director of Press and Public Relations reads in part, the processes leading to the fulfillment of the other requests of the NLC, especially wage award, are on course and will be concluded soon. The minister therefore called on the NLC not to embark on their planned strike. As it stands, the federal government and other relevant bodies that can intervene in the matters that have led to this strike still have up till Monday, October 2, to come to a round table with the workers' unions and perhaps get a reversal to the indefinite action already declared by the two labour centres.
And after that announcement made by the NLC and TUC, the National Economic Council has appealed to the leadership of organized labor to shelve their planned nationwide indefinite strike action. Speaking after the meeting, which took place at the Presidential Council chamber, Governor Caleb Mutfwang of Plateau State, who spoke on the issue, said President Bola Tinubu will also address the issue in his Independence Day speech.
It's the 136th National Economic Council meeting taking place in the council chamber of the presidential villa. In attendance were state governors, some deputy governors, and some ministers, while the Vice President, Kashim Shettima, chaired the meeting. The meeting took place behind closed doors, and over 3 hours later, a delegation appeared to brief journalists on the resolutions reached. The council started by calling on organized labor to shelve their plans for a nationwide strike action.
NEC is appealing for for patience, is appealing for time to be able to address the concerns of labor. We also believe that Mr. President will be addressing the nation 1st October, and some of the concerns of labor will be appropriately addressed in the President's speech. And NEC is appealing that discussions should continue at the state levels because there will be peculiarities as to the issues to be addressed concerning the demands of labor. And therefore, dialogue is the way to go.
The council also took an update on the distribution of palliatives.
Members of the council have received the sum of $2 billion from the federal government as part of the palliative. And also work is on progress by all members of the council. And the council urged members to redouble effort to alleviate the sufferings of the Nigerians.
According to the governor of Nasarawa State, the declining production of oil was also considered by council following a presentation by the Director General of the Budget Office on next year's budget.
It was asked also to go and check on the presentation on the declining production of oil, because that's one area that we said we are concerned. We cannot be having more discoveries in the oil field and yet we are having declining production when it comes to that, because we expect OPEC actually to increase our quota, not to decrease. And so we can take advantage of the economic situation.
A resolution was also taken on the issue of electricity and energy sufficiency.
State government should encourage to carry out energy audits to determine energy needs and explore areas of collaboration with the private sector based on their competitive advantages. NEC
also received the report of the 2022 flood disaster and directed the National Emergency Management Agency to immediately intervene in affected states. Lanre Lasisi, Channels Television News.
And still on the proposed industrial strike action, the Speaker of the House of Representatives, Honorable Abbas Tajuddin, is urging organized labor to step down the planned strike, promising that the House will intervene in the dispute between labor and the federal government. He appeals to the labor unions to consider the actions taken by the government to address the economic situation in the country.
It's a full house as plenary resumes in the Green Chamber after a 6-week break.
I'm excited to warmly welcome you.
The Speaker welcomes his colleagues with a speech as he highlights the role of Parliament in addressing the various concerns across the country.
We must deploy the necessary legislative instruments to create jobs, ensure payment of living wages in the civil service, pull Nigerians out of poverty, address the prevailing infrastructural deficit, rid the country of crippling insurgency, ensure the security of lives and property, and affordable functional education so that no child is left behind.
The Speaker seizes the moment to appeal to the organized labor on its planned nationwide strike action in protest of the economic situation of the country.
The 10th House had assured Nigerians there would be interfacing between the organized labor and the government to quickly work out a realistic new national minimum wage. It is in our considered opinion that embarking on a nationwide strike at this point will only aggravate an already bad situation. I therefore urge the leadership of labor unions to give us the benefit of doubt and suspend any planned strike action while we engage the executive.
Next, the House considers a motion of urgent national importance from Honorable Babajimi Benson on the circumstances surrounding the death of his constituent, Afrobeat singer Ireolua Aloba, better known as Mohbad, who died 2 weeks ago at the age of 27.
The House is further disturbed that most of the proceeds of the late artist are still going to the Malian Music Group, and there have been no moves from any agency to protect the estate of the late singer, who is currently the 46th best-selling digital artist in the world. Accordingly, and the prayers are, sir, urges the House to observe a 1-minute silence. 2, monitor the ongoing investigation of Mohbad's death, particularly the allegations of harassment and unpaid royalties. Collaborate with stakeholders, including record labels, artists, legal experts, and industry associations, to develop and implement industry-wide guidelines that ensure fair treatment, transparent contractual agreements, and proper compensation for artists.
The House then observes a minute of silence in honor of the late singer, as it also resolves to review copyright and contracts laws. Terry Ikumi, Channels Television News.
All right, let's turn our attention now to the newly appointed governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, Mr. Yemi Cardoso, who has promised to make the Nigerian economy a $1 trillion economy in 8 years. Mr. Cardoso made this comment shortly before his confirmation as substantive governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria. Also confirmed are 4 deputy governors, Mrs. Soro, Mr. Mohammed Datijo, Mr. Philip Kiazo, and Dr. Bala Bello.
The Senate resumed from its annual vacation and immediately got down to business as the President of the Senate read official communications from the President. And prominent amongst them is the request for the confirmation of the newly appointed governor of the Central Bank and 4 deputy governors. Following a motion by the Senate leader, the nominees are ushered into the chambers and they are given the opportunity to introduce themselves.
One of my achievements at the time was, of course, setting up a brand new ministry from scratch, which had no antecedent, and ensuring that the economy of Lagos was managed through this particular vehicle. I'm very happy that how many years later, virtually every single sub-national entity within the Federation of Nigeria has copied this model. One of the groundbreaking efforts we had in this regard was the Engbeti Lagos Economic Summit. And I say this with all pride because till today, 20 years later, that particular entity as a major entity to articulate change within our society.
I completed a bachelor's degree in economics at Ahmadu Bello University, Zaria. I proceeded to also complete a master's in international affairs and diplomacy in ABU Zaria. Subsequently, I completed a master's degree in development economics and policy at the University of Manchester in the United Kingdom. I am currently rounding up a PhD in Henley Business School at the University of Reading.
I have an MBA from Obafemi Awolowo University. I'm an alumnus of Harvard Business School. Have attended several international programs, some of which are the Advanced Management Program in Harvard, General Management Program, the Strategic Marketing Management Program, Authentic Leadership. I've also attended Corporate Credit Analysis and Financial Modeling from Euromoney, and I'm also an alumnus of Lagos Business School.
After their introductions, the Senate President then used the floor to his colleagues to ask the nominees questions, and a number of them raised their concerns about the state of the economy.
I want you to be a yes. Will you be able to tell the President, this is wrong, I will not do it? You must tell the Senate that you will be able to do that. Because you must be able to tell the President, no, this is wrong, I will not do it. I would rather resign than to do this. We are dying in Nigeria. Nigerian people must have value for governance.
My view is I am suspicious of people whose main background come from commercial banking. Because central banking is about policy. It's not about marketing. It's not about seeking profit. It's about getting monetary policies right with clear focus on specific microeconomic objective. Whether it is job creation, stabilizing a price regime, exchange rate regime, inflation regime, all of that. When listening to the CVs, people who have managed banks that have gone into liquidation, that cannot be used as positive in their favor. The truth has to be told. I am not suggesting that any one of them is responsible. I'm saying a doctor who parades the number of people who died under his care cannot forward that to me as a CV for me to appoint him as a Surgeon General. If we don't work on weak variables, how do we recover the economy? If what you have today is 7% cash, 93% of your cash is already arrested. You have 7% cash to work with. How do you do that? Capital project is 70%. The current is 30%. You're already on negative of 67%. What do you want to do?
I want you to look at importation. Everybody goes to CBN for importation left and right. I will want a situation where we can put a caveat on every demand of forest to sign a memorandum of understanding with EFCC or any of our institutions for them to have a code that grants the agency to verify, and everything that relates to that importation will have that code, will have that number, so that people will not be recycling our forests.
Following the screening, the Senate then confirms the nomination of Mr. Kadosu and the deputies.
Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. The nomination of Olayemi Kadosu is hereby confirmed as Governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria.
While the debate whether or not bankers should be running our economy instead of the economists will go on for a very long time. But one thing is certain, the plate of this central bank governor is quite full, from the inflation and the interest rates to the forex regime. From the National Assembly, Dele Omoyeni, Channels Television News.
And still ahead on News Round, Governor Sanwo-Olu inspects red line projects in Lagos. Do stay with us. Welcome back to watching News Round live on Channels Television. Well, Vice President Kashim Shettima says 2023 general election is the most divisive election in the history of Nigeria. He also says Nigerians must remember that their most potent weapon is the overriding resolve of the majority to choose unity over chaos and democracy over anarchy.
Government officials, private sector players, traditional rulers and diplomats have converged on the banquet hall of the State House for a public lecture to mark Nigeria's 63rd independence anniversary. The crux of the lecture is on actualizing the vision of the renewed hope agenda of the current administration for socio-economic development through effective leadership.
This process is critical because of the dynamic nature of our socio-economic environment and the global systems. It is also significant because President Bola Ahmed Tinubu had, during his recent address at the United Nations General Assembly, beckoned on the world leaders to partner with Nigeria for business and development.
Corruption, incessant industrial action, and nepotism are among the issues the guest lecturer addresses, while emphasizing the need for synergy among ministries, departments, and agencies of government.
We must constantly be reminded of the key requirements that government offices and agencies must be alert to their responsibilities and responsive to the yearnings of the citizens. In the face of the many local challenges that have begun to coalesce and snowball to national problems, this requirement has now become an urgent imperative. Public servants are servants of the public, not their bosses.
He also calls for adequate utilization of Nigeria's richly endowed resources.
The capacity of a nation to grow its economy base is contingent on its ability to move state resources in the direction of capital expenditure for the provision of infrastructure, social services, security, etc. It is this that in turn will affect what can be available for salaries.
The same views are re-echoed by discussants during the panel session, where they reiterate the need for people-centered policies, youth engagement in governance, and gender equality. However, the Speaker of the House of Representatives makes a case for Nigerian workers.
If a worker is paid well, he is paid enough to be able to afford his basic needs. it will help to eliminate corruption in a significant way.
For Vice President Kashim Shettima, the unity of Nigeria is paramount.
The last election was probably one of the most divisive elections in the contemporary annals of Nigerian history. Ethno-religious and regional fault lines were deliberately manipulated for political ends. As we reflect on the values and principles that have brought us this far, as we strive to excel in all that we do, and as we work together towards a future where opportunity knows no bounds, let's remember that our most potent weapon is the overriding resolve of the majority to choose unity over chaos and democracy over anarchy.
The take-home from this lecture is that all hands must be on deck for Nigeria to prosper, and the government must address the underlying factors militating against the country's development.
And from the Federal Capital Territory to the nation's commercial nerve center, where the Lagos State Governor, Babajide Sanwo-Olu, has announced zero tolerance to commercial activities along the Red Rail Line. Governor Sanwo-Olu made this comment during an assessment tour of the Red Rail Line project corridor from Agbado through Iju, Agege, Ikeja, Yaba, and Ebute Metta stations.
The Lagos State Governor, Babajide Sanwo-Olu, set out to inspect the Red Line rail station. His first stop is the Agbado Rail Line. It takes time to inspect the ongoing project, where he is greeted by residents of the area. Next stop is Iju Station. He moves around the facility to see what has been put in place. In the Agege area, the governor warns traders to stop all forms of business activities on the rail tracks. The Red Line rail is aligned at Ebute Metta within the premises of the Nigerian Railway Corporation. Governor Sanwo-Olu says it has the capacity to take over 1,000 passengers per trip.
There's still some work that we need to do, especially around cleaning up all of the illegal activity that are being conducted on the rail track, which shouldn't be, and some final approach around pedestrian bridges that we need to clean up and we need to finish, and general cleaning up of all of the stations are still part of the things that we need to do. Regarding the passenger capacity, I'm sure if you look at the strength and the length, they will take not less than 1,000 passengers at once.
He says the project deadline is on track and appeals for federal government support to complete other rail infrastructure.
We have conversation, around buying more rolling stock. We're having conversations on the green and purple line. I need to also mention this. Most nations that are building rail infrastructure, it's usually taken up by their national government. We're about the only one that is carrying this burden all on our own. So if the federal government, if they support us, we will take their support so that we can do these things a lot more quicker and faster. We believe that we're still on track, to see how we can finish before the end of this year.
The Lagos State government assures residents of opening the Yaba and Ikeja flyovers next month to ease traffic congestion within the metropolis.
Our news round ends with the horrifying story of a wedding, supposed to be a beautiful event, turned into a disaster in Iraq's Nineveh province. At least 100 people have been killed and more than 150 others injured, and authorities are still counting the casualties. And that's it on News Round. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Ladi Williams. Bye for now.